Madam Secretary, I want to ask about the NPRA rule. As I mentioned, you're closing off 13 million of our 23 million acre preserve. We absolutely believe that this conflicts with the law, which calls for expedited leasing and development, and what we're effectively looking at is something that's designed to cut off access across the reserve. Now, I appreciated the issue that was raised by the senator from Rhode Island in noting that here in the United States we have seen increased oil production. I think it's great. I think it's fabulous for this country. I just wish Alaska were able to participate in it more. As other states are, certainly the state of New Mexico is. New Mexico's oil production has increased by about 900,000 barrels per day in this administration. In Alaska, our production has been flat. It's even declined a little bit here. Your production, the production in your home state in New Mexico, literally 4 times ours on a daily basis. And this is where I just don't get it. We're the ones that are the carbon bomb, so to speak. We're the ones that are targeted in Alaska. It's only our lands that are being closed down, access denied. Somehow it seems like our emissions are a lot worse than anybody else's, New Mexico, somewhere else. So you have to, I have to keep coming back to this because it is such a double standard. And this is where Alaskans are like, we are part of the United States, and yet we're treated in a very, very, very different manner. When you announced the NPRA rule, you stated that, quote, "The steps we are taking today are based on the best available science and in recognition of the indigenous knowledge of the original stewards of this area to safeguard our public lands for future generations." But the question that I have for you is how can you state that this rule is based on the best science when Interior did not conduct a NEPA analysis or any economic analysis and made no attempt to understand how it would impact the subsistence and the communities that, again, these are the original stewards of the land here. I have heard from them, the press has recounted time and time again, but 8 times, 8 separate occasions, the Alaska Native people who lived in the area asked to meet with you in your office to speak to this. You said earlier in a response to one of my colleagues here today, I think you were referring to the Erikwame, I'm probably mispronouncing it, I'm sorry, but you said, and I wrote it down because it struck me, you said, when tribes come to us to ask to conserve certain lands, we listen. So the question is, when tribes want to come to you to ask to develop certain lands, do you also listen? Because what they share with me is that you refuse them that opportunity. So I guess my question is how can you claim the rule is based on the science, the best science, when there's no NEPA analysis, there's no economic analysis, and the consultation with the people who live there has failed?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. I just have to say, with respect to New Mexico, there is a lot of private land there that is developed. That's not under the federal government's purview, and we don't have any, you know.
And we have less than 1% of private lands, but what we do have are public land. We have public lands.
Yes, and we take those lands seriously. And I also do want to say how much we've been engaged with Alaska on so many things. The Gravel to Gravel initiative, for example, salmon crashes in the Yukon-Kuskokwim River Delta. We are listening, we are working on those issues. So I don't want to lose sight of the good things that we have done in Alaska
and I
as
don't
well.
lose sight of that. I don't lose sight of that. But what I'm trying to understand from this administration is, it seems that the actions that are being taken from the administration when it comes to the opportunity for economic activity, for people to be able to make a living, for people to be able to stay in their region, for people to have better life expectancies and health outcomes and education and public safety, when we ask for that, it seems that if it's on public lands, it's a no-go. It's a no-go. Can you give me your ironclad commitment that the final rule on the NPRA will have no impact on operators' ability to develop their existing leases, and not only on the leases themselves, but for the roads and the connective infrastructure as well? Because this was the promise from the administration. This was the promise that we had, was that those existing leases would not be impacted. And I can tell you right now, the operators up there are very, very, very concerned that they will be impacted, they will not be able to develop fully their leases as the promise. Can you give me the commitment that they will be able to develop their existing leases?
Senator, the rule includes specific protections for valid existing rights. Mm-hmm. And we encourage people to call us. We're happy to have conversations with anyone, and we have engaged more. I know people like to say we didn't consult, we didn't do this, we really have had many, many conversations. Over 100,000 public comments were received during this period. So the rule does include specific protections for valid existing rights. If anyone in particular has a specific question to ask us, we're happy to engage in a conversation.
I don't think anybody wants more conversation. They want the valid existing leases to be respected, respected in full, and that includes not only the leases themselves, but the roads and the connective infrastructure as well.